Hey there, welcome back to our web series on HTML and CSS. This is our second video on text formatting. In this lesson, we're going to learn about the div and span tags to mark up text, and we're going to learn how to change the font, size, weight, and text decoration of our text elements. So the div tag is what's called a block level tag, a block level element we're going to talk about a lot in this series. A block element is an element that is the full width of the page and has a pre and post break built into it. The div tag is a block level element with no other pre-formatting. We saw H1s in our last installment, and H1s were also block level, but they changed the size of the text and bolded it. A div only treats it as a block level. It has no other pre-formatting as part of it. It can be used to create paragraph level separations on a page. So over here, you'll see my code. I have two divs here. This is the first paragraph. This is the second paragraph. Here on the web page, very plainly with only a line break between them, and that's without using the BR tag because the div or any block level element has that BR built into it. The span tag is the other side of things. It's called an inline element. An inline element is only the width of the content, and it does not have line breaks before or after. The span tag is an inline element, and it allows us to design pieces of code styling without forcing a line break. Once again, you'll see over here spans listed right in row with each other. This is first, this is second, and the output looks like this. Whereas when we had divs, they were on different lines because the line break was the block level element. When we do spans as inline elements, they appear in line or on the same line. Once again, just kind of a comparison, contrast between them. Div is block level, full width, line break before and line break after. Span is inline. It is only the width of the content. It has no line breaks. What they have in common is that they have no formatting. They have no other pre-formatting on the text putting inside of it. So we look at this in use here, and we look on the left side, and you'll see div style equals background color red, and that is the entire size of the div. And then I have a first sentence, and then I have a second sentence and a third second sentence. So here's my first sentence, my second sentence, my third sentence. The second sentence is in a span with style color white, and you can see that it became white. And then I've got another div down here with a background color of AAAAFF, which is kind of this periwinkle blue color. And then I have sentence A and sentence B. Sentence B is enclosed in a span with color yellow. And you'll see that sentence B then appears in yellow. So the divs got separated with an automatic line break. The spans allowed us to change things in line exactly the way they were. Before we go on to the CSS text formatting, let's get out of here for a second and take a look at this as is. And so what I want you to see is if I do div style equals background color blue, hello, and then after that I do a span style equals background color red, and I say hi. This is where we'll see one of the big differences. You'll see that hello stretches all the way across the screen because once again, a block level element is full width, and the span only stretches the width of the content because it is not a full width element. So I think that's a pretty important thing to see visually. All right, let's get back into it here now. And we're going to talk about a number of different CSS rules for text formatting. And so here they are. We've got font weight. Font weight can either have a value of normal or bold. That vertical line just is separating my options. My font style can be normal or italic. My text decoration can be none, underline, overline, or line through. Font size will change the size of a font. We're going to measure that in EM, and we'll talk about that a little more. Font family, we give a comma separated list of fonts. And then text align, we can text align right, center, or left. So let's take a look at some of this. The first thing that I did was I created a div, and the style of that is to text align to the right. So you'll see that all my content is over here on the right. Inside of that are three spans. I've got a span style font weight bold, which makes it bold. You'll see that right here. I have a span style font style italic, which makes it italic. You'll see that right here. And I have a span style text decoration underline, and you'll see that right there. Font sizing can be set in pixels or points, just like we do in Microsoft Word or in Google Docs. These are absolute measures and are going to be the same side regardless of a user's device or settings. Our better option is to use something called EM. EMs are a relative measure based on the user's or the device's default font size. So if somebody is using a phone, for example, their default font size is going to be much smaller than on a laptop. And then there are other people who may have vision problems, some of the elderly who view things larger. They've changed their resolution so that it shows text larger. Um, so in order to work effectively in all of these different environments, we use EMs. One EM is the default size of that user's device. Therefore, zero point 0.5 EM is half the default size, and 2 EM would be twice the default size. It's recommended that you use EM for font sizing to keep your design as desired on different devices. So you'll see here I've got normal text, and then I did a half size of normal size and a double size. And so normal text and the 1 EM are the same. That zero point 0.5 EM is half the size and the 2 EM is twice the size. And once again, by using EMs, regardless of the user's default font size, if we're using EMs, it's going to shrink or grow our text relatively to that default font size. Font family. That's the face of the font. We do this again in word processors all the time: Verdana, Times New Roman, Arial. One of the problems that we run into is that we're limited to fonts that are on our computer. Um, and so what happens is we design something and it looks really great because that font is on our computer, and then we send it out on the web. And if the viewer or the user doesn't have that font, then they see our page totally differently. So one of the things that we're allowed to do here is we're allowed to list a series of fonts. So when I do font family, I can do Lato, comma, Arial, comma, sans serif, sorry. And what that means is uh, I want it to be in Lato. But if they don't have Lato, then I want it to be in Arial. And if they don't have Arial, then I want it to be in whatever the machine's default sans serif font is. Now there's a link here that takes us out to some web safe fonts in 2020. And so web safe fonts are Arial, Courier New, Georgia, Times New Roman, and Verdana. So almost every computer will have those 5 fonts. And then there's some more popular fonts that are around. But if you want to be sure that users are going to see it the way you designed it, you're kind of stuck to these 5 fonts. There's also then a discussion of serif versus sans serif fonts. And this is a whole article that you can certainly go read about which you should use and when. But I just want to get into showing the serif versus sans serif here. Okay. Um, Here it is. So a serif font, the serif, the word serif in French, is has to do with the feet. And so what we've got is we've got these little feet here at the end of our letters. And what it does is it creates a line, guide your eye across the line of text. This is a font that's often used in newspapers and magazines. Sans serif, then, the sans in French means without. So we're going to say without serif. And you'll see that we don't get those little feet. We don't get that little line that comes across to help guide our eye. It's got a more modern look and feel. So most computers have a default sans serif font and a default serif font that you can use, and you can just list your options as you go. Even better than that is the addition of Google Fonts. And if we use Google Fonts, then we can use any of the 800 fonts in their collection. And as long as my user is connected to the internet, which they will have to be to see my web page, the font that I choose will work out. Now you'll see there's a little more work here. There's a link tag that goes up here in the head. Don't worry about that. It gets generated by Google for us. And then there is, I just use my font family here, the same way that I did before, using the font that I chose from Google Fonts. So I'm going to go out and show you how this works a little bit. So we're going to come out here and we're going to see a font that we want, for example, Notable. And so I can click on it and, we'll see some content, some comments, pairings, all kinds of different things, and we'll actually see what the font is. And then we come up here. I'm going to select this style. And then these are my selected families. All right. And I'm going to choose to embed them. And here's that link tag that I was talking about. So I take that link tag and I copy it. And then out here in my head, I paste that link tag. Now that alone doesn't do anything. You'll see that nothing has changed here. But if I come into this div and I do font family : Notable, now you'll see that that font has changed, and that's going to be good for anybody. So the addition of Google Fonts to web development is really, really big because, as we said, if we go back and browse fonts, there are 800 plus fonts here. Actually 992 at the recording of this, and we can do them by categories: serif, sans serif, display, handwriting, monospace. We can do it by language. We can do it by font properties. So there's all kinds of different things that we can do here. But again, the trick is getting that link and pulling that in. Okay, so back here, just as a review, we've got div and we've got span as our tags: a block level element div, an inline element span. And then we learned a bunch of styles: font weight, font style, font family, font size, text decoration, and text align. One more thing to talk about here real quick is this conversation about text align. Really interesting thing to try here. If I add text align center to the hello, to the div, and I add text align center to the span, you'll notice that it seems that the div worked, but the span didn't. Again, the reason for that is because I'm aligning the text inside of the tag. Since a div is full width of the page already, then it shifts it to the center. But remember that a span is only the width of the content. So what I've done is I've taken something that's 10 feet long and put it in a space that's 10 feet wide and said, okay, I want to center this. Well, if it is the width of its content, then it's automatically centered. So it doesn't center the whole span, it centers the content in the span. When you want to center something like that word hello, it's got to be inside of a div, not inside of a span. Okay, so back to it. Let's do a practice problem here. Make a page that has your name, first, middle, initial, and last, centered and bold at the top. Your name should be white text on a purple background. And then make your first name in the font Arial, your middle initial in the font Times New Roman, and your last name in the Google font Railway. All right, here's the solution to that. First, I had to go out and I had to get Railway from Google Fonts, and you'll see that I included that up here. Then I made a div, which was background color purple, color white, and text align center. Inside of that was my first name, which was font family Arial, my middle initial, which was font family Times New Roman, and my last name, which was font family Railway, each time always given an option for the default in case something should go wrong, that it at least appears in a serif or sans serif font as I had chosen. All right, so I hope this helps you with all of the things we're working on with font styling and text styling um, in HTML and CSS. Be sure to join us next time with our next installment, which will be about you creating and placing images inside of a web page. See you next time.